Today is March 8th, 2021. This is the Kubernetes CSI implementation meeting. We will go through our usual agenda first, which is our release statuses. Starting with 119, I think I pinged Jing this morning, and she said she was going to start looking at this again. So hopefully we'll be able to make more progress this week on the CSI proxy image promotion. We don't have anything left for 120, so let's go to 121. We have code freeze tomorrow, so let's take a look and see where we're at. I think first up is this node unstage and volume delete race. I think, Hamad, you have a couple comments on this one? Oh, Hamad, are you there?
He's on mute.
Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes. I can hear you. Hello?
Come on, we can hear you. Or we could hear you briefly, not anymore.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Hamad, we can hear you say hello, but nothing else.
Oh, you cannot hear me?
No, we can hear you.
The joys of Zoom meetings.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Thank you.
So I think you had some comments on this fix, which is to also wait. I think you have some comments on like ordering of when we should start calling mount volume.
Yeah, basically like if for attached volume, we wait for attachable volumes, we wait for the volume to be reported in use before we start mounting them. The reasoning is once we start mounting them, the kubelet should not be able, the control plane should not be able to detach them until it's reported as not in use. So if stage unstage has similar problem, if we start to mount them those volumes without reporting them as in use, although we are adding it to that array, that nodes, that array with which eventually it will get reported, but it does not get reported right away. And what happens is like if user deletes the volume, deletes the pod while this 10-second or whatever the time the node status sync happens, and it's never recorded and the volume will be deleted. I think that is problematic.
Okay. Is this sorry to clarify my understanding, is a kubelet or attach controller that updates in volumes in use?
Kubelet updates that.
So would in-tree volumes have a similar problem?
Why? The entry volume, this attached mechanism is only this mechanism is only relevant for like attachable volumes in general, but I could see that for entry volumes, if the volume doesn't have attached mechanism and the volume, but there's no like generally global mounts, but even for those volumes, it's possible that if they have stage like global mount and if they have like pod mounts and you delete the volume, then the volume could be deleted before the global mount is removed for entry volumes. So
Yeah, like I think local volumes might be one of those that implements the global mount but not attach detach.
yeah.
I don't know if Fiber Channel or iSCSI do that. I don't remember.
iSCSI has, I think iSCSI implements global mount. I don't know.
I think SCSI has global mount.
Yeah, so anything that, yeah, that problem is there. I think it's fixable. It just, but the problem is fixable where we could just check for global mount also, instead of just, right now we are only checking for if attachable. If volume is attachable, then wait for report in use. We could extend that to mountable devices, but then, I
Okay.
mean,
Do you think we should fix this only for CSI or for the other entry plugins too?
I think we should probably fix it for all the plugins, because otherwise we'll have to expose some CSI specific properties in the volume plugin manager interface, like wherever we are storing that stuff.
Okay, sounds good. We can sync up with Psychot on potentially
And
like the details of how to do this.
and also for the watching the whole node system, I was thinking about it actually, like just very quickly, like in the external provider watch, like we're like listing the whole nodes. Could we do something that we did in external resizer, or something where like when a pod is created, we record where the pod was scheduled, the node name, and when the pod is deleted, we could have a map where like, okay, this pod was scheduled on this node, and clear that map periodically, basically like every 2 hours, have a timestamp of like what is that, like a time delay of 2 minutes or something. After that, that entry will be removed once pod is deleted, but use that map as a place to check where this volume was previously attached or in use, so that we don't have to fetch all the nodes. We could just check those nodes. You could,
I guess this would require pods the external provisioner to watch pods.
yeah,
I guess would we have a similar problem in that like informers will be delayed,
which informer?
like a pod informer?
I mean, pod creation event, pod deletion event, if we miss both of them very quickly, and then the delete arrives as well, and then the volume delete event arrives before we could receive pod creation, pod add, pod deletion, then yeah, it's possible, but that's very unlikely, I think.
Okay. I mean, yeah, let's still think about it and we can definitely consider that. I guess my only concern is watching pods is pretty expensive because pods are pretty active.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an opt-in, right? So you have to, if you want this, then you have to enable it. Maybe that's okay. I don't know, but if you're going to, yeah, if you're going to support this thing, then we should probably do that. It's less expensive than listing all nodes all the time, maybe.
okay. All right, sounds good. Sounds like these two still need some more discussion on what we should actually design with the fix. So I think it's sounding like we won't be able to get this in by 121, but maybe if the change is still small enough, we can get it in as a bug fix and backport it if we need to.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Next up is this performance E2E test. Where are we on this?
Do you mean to ask him to make this optional, or what are you suggesting there? seed result, but how long it takes and the maximum pods per node.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, like I actually did not see this test running in any of the CI jobs.
Oh, you're saying it's not
And
even
I
running?
thought it should. Yeah. And even if it did
Okay.
run, it would fail because it's trying to create 300 pods, and the maximum number of pods that we allow is 100 per node. So I think, yeah, that just needs some checking to see like which job is it actually running in, and are we setting the appropriate scaling parameters to be able to complete in a reasonable amount of time.
Okay.
All right. Sure. I'll go ahead and follow up with Ronak on this. It looks like he did make some updates. So
I think this still has until 24th of this month because it's just modifying tests.
oh, is that actually a thing?
There is, yeah, I learned today that
E2E test can go in after.
Yes,
That's
I
Oh,
learned
that's
today
something
that.
new or something? Is it new? Oh, okay.
Well, I asked about it today because I had another test PR that was stuck because it didn't have a milestone, and I asked on SIG release, and they pointed out that there is indeed a code freeze today, but a test freeze on Wednesday, March 24th. And until then, it's still okay to add new tests. And after the test freeze, that's when it gets really strict, and all test changes should be limited to fixing tests and removing tests that are not stable.
okay.
But this particular PR seems to have a bit more time.
Okay, that's surprising to me that they'll basically allow features to go in without tests, but okay.
No, new features must have tests, but you can still add tests, say, for an existing feature for a certain period of time.
I see.
So the requirement for features is indeed that the tests are there at the time of merging, but this here is basically a new test that isn't related to any particular feature. So it can go in at any time when it's ready, and until this test freeze.
Okay, cool. That makes more sense. Thanks for clarifying. All right. Next up, we have CSI migration.
Yeah, I think so. Yang discovered another bug about CSI migration. I'm gonna try to take a look today, and hopefully I can find the root cause and fix it today. Otherwise, it might go in the next release.
That's fine. I think if it's a bug and like the fix isn't huge, we could always backport bug fixes.
And
yeah, sounds good.
It's more likely to be in the external provisioner library and the external provisioner, which is not bound by the code freeze.
Oh yeah, I need to check if that if the annotation provisioned by is not being used somewhere else in the core Kubernetes, because I don't really like remember the logic. If we actually like, is that the provision by expected to be set as the CSI driver, or is that expect to be set as the entry plugin? Like I don't know if that is by design, so I should double check.
I think it should be set by the entry plugin, because one of the requirements of CSI migration is that if you have an existing PV object from way before, that is already going to have the entry plugin in the provision by annotation.
Okay.
So I think with CSI migration, we're not really changing that.
So yeah,
or we still have to support that.
But does anyone consume that annotation, or is that an informal thing?
The PV controller, I believe, uses that annotation to figure out which driver should be doing the delete.
It's also used in admission controllers to check if the node affinity and whatnot is right or not, and it kind of tries to add it back actually if something's wrong with those.
Yeah, that could be problematic. If we change that to int, then when we add a new PVC and PV, then the admission controller will add some other annotations.
Which is fine, right?
Well, I let me check. Let me check on that today, and hopefully I can get it fixed today. I'll be 100% concentrate on that today. So
Okay.
I think I can get some test.
Cool. All right, thank you. Was there anything left with migration? I think
also sender driver is going GA. Right. So I saw a PR today.
Oh, it's not going
Is it
GA.
going?
Oh, sorry, it's on by default, right? Like I saw
Yeah.
you had a change. Yeah,
That's
it's on
the
by
plan.
default today.
Yeah, that's the plan. And I'm curious what's going on with GCE because it's off by default right now.
Yeah, so I think they tried to go enable the to enable it on by default, but I think it turns out the fixing the kubeup permission stuff to work with the CSI driver is a bit more complicated than they thought. So I think they're not going to be able to make code freeze.
Yeah, we really tried, but the kubeup thing is a little more complicated than we thought. So guess we will have to make it another release.
So Cinder is going to be the only one. That's, well, I'm getting nervous. Okay, too late. Okay, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, but I think they're still, I think they have, they're working on a plan on how to get kubeup fixed with all the service accounts stuff, and I think probably early in the next cycle. But I think right now, I think they're thinking it'll be a pretty big change because pretty much all the CI jobs will have to be changed, and potentially all the CI jobs will start failing like a day before code freeze. So all right. And with all the metric stuff, that's all done.
Yeah, all the metric stuff are done. I think the metrics thing are like only the sidecars need to cut a new release. And otherwise the metrics, the metrics is done.
Okay. Cool. Thank you very much. All right. Next up is snapshots.
Snapshot, I think we just may have one PR, grants PR would like to get merged. So that's, oh, this is also E2E test. You say now we actually have more time. Okay. Yeah, so I haven't checked the status actually. I know that you are actually reviewing that.
Yeah, I reviewed it, and I was actually wondering if like it would be better to actually have this test be in the external snapshot repo instead of Kubernetes, because it's actually not testing the plugin, right? It's testing the snapshot controller.
Right, but then that's not a E2E test anymore, right? We don't do E2E test.
I mean, we could.
Yeah, but then that's weird, right? And we don't have that for like, for example, for provisioner, like all of those tests are all in tree. Now suddenly we want to move this one out.
Potentially. So like I don't think test suites is the right place for it, at least because test suites is supposed to be, the main goal is to be able to test drivers and not necessarily the controllers. And the other problem is that this metrics test assumes certain things about the way the snapshot controller is deployed, and it's not going to be true across all clusters. So like that's why I'm kind of thinking this needs to be specific to the, a certain cluster deployment where we can control how snapshot controller is deployed. So that actually the test is going to work on, so that we're confident the test is going to work on that platform.
But we already have other E2E test for snapshot in tree, right?
Yeah, but this one is assuming that snapshot controller is deployed as a pod in the same cluster. It's assuming snapshot controller is deployed with a specific port for metrics, which is not going to be true on all clusters.
Okay, maybe we should bring this offline then.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that's it for snapshot.
Okay, thank you. Next we have ephemeral volumes.
I just need an LGTM again from Saad. The API review has finished. Jordan has looked at it and has approved the PR, but because of some smallish changes, I need Saad or you, Michelle, if you feel confident doing that, to just add LGTM again, and then it should be ready for merging. I think it also needs the milestone. That was also missing. That's something that I also learned today, that this milestone command is necessary to get approved, and LGTM PRs merged at this time. And
okay,
yeah,
so sounds good. I'll ping Saad to take another look at this.
And if you can do that while I'm still awake, I sleep better.
Okay, sounds good. And then this test thing, is this done?
The test is done. The CAP update is pending. Okay. That's just a documentation change that says this is the metrics thing, and these are the tests that we are running. Now that the PR is going to be turning the feature into beta, I probably should update the pending CAP and point out that the job that it's running in is not the alpha job anymore. Yeah,
okay, sounds good.
That's basically, I think that's something that can be done at any time. We just had a to-do item around it, and that's why I have a pending PR to remind me.
Okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and ping Saad. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, and then we have storage capacity.
Yeah, you had one question around, or one suggestion what to add to the documentation. It's perhaps also worthwhile for the others to know that we apparently have been doing optional or new API object kinds wrong in SIG storage. I learned that registration of those objects should be unconditional, independent of a feature gate. And that's exactly what we have not been doing in the past for CSI driver, CSI node, and so on. It's gone now because it became GA, but it used until very recently we had a feature gate check in the registration code path. And Jordan looked at this and started to wonder why this is, and pointed out that it's the API group where we control which API is available in the API server and not the feature gates of the API server. So in this case here, CSI storage capacity in beta and in alpha will be available in those API groups even when the feature gate is turned off. And that's intentional. Apparently it's how it should be done. And
okay.
coming back to your question, Michelle, you asked, can we document feature gate requirements here too for the CSI storage capacity objects? Yes, we can, but the answer is not that the availability depends on the feature gate, because that's just not true anymore. What we could say is my proposal in a comment is these objects are consumed by the kube scheduler if the CSI storage capacity beta feature gate is enabled and the CSI driver opts into capacity aware scheduling with CSI driver storage capacity. So basically give some information what these objects are used for. I'm not sure whether we should be doing it because it's basically describing what other components in Kubernetes do with this API, even though, yeah, well, I guess it probably makes sense. That's what I would add.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think my intention was just to note that like the use of this object is going to depend on the feature gate.
And that's what we can accurately describe if we talk about the kube scheduler, because that's the component where feature gate matters more so than in the API server or in the API itself. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Then I'll add that sentence, regenerate documentation, and it should be ready in half an hour or so.
Cool.
I'll ping you when it's done.
All right.
So
Sounds good. Thank you.
I don't understand the thing about the objects being registered. Like, why do we have some new objects that are being registered in tree by the API server when stuff like snapshots is still done externally? How do we make?
Okay, that's the key question, whether an API is built in or external and done with CRDs. I think the test right now is if some in-tree component needs the API, then it's better to use an internal API because there are still uncertainties around installing CRDs in a cluster. So at best, the internal component would have to deal with the API not being available, which makes it more complicated. And the other is, yeah, well, some practical questions around code generation and so on. It probably could be done, but then basically the internal component, yeah, can't depend on the API being registered and available.
Okay, so the fact that snapshots are just enough out of core that you can run a cluster without having registered the CRD means that we intend to keep it out of the core because it's not absolutely necessary.
I think that's the key difference.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's helpful to me. Thank you.
Yeah. But as I said, the way how we added these objects, the in-tree objects, that has been done differently in the past than with CSI storage capacity now in beta. And I didn't know until Jordan looked at it and pointed that out.
Yeah, I didn't know either. So learned something new every day.
I also have the honor of having him writing an entire new section for the developer guide, just for the thing that I did with ephemeral volumes, where I added a new field in an enum, a new value in an enum, and apparently I also did that wrong. So lots of scrutiny from Jordan this cycle, which is kind of scary, but I live. And it's
adding new values to enums is a big deal, apparently.
Yeah, and it's done differently. I mean, with new fields, it's okay to drop the field. With enums, it's the other way around. It must be rejected if it's not enabled. So these two cases really are different. And the only explanation that I can think of is that the default behavior of the JSON parser was different for unknown fields than it was for enums, which then later on, after parsing, were always handled by code that could reject an unknown value. I think to me, it looks like a historic oddity, but we have to program towards that and make the new code that knows about these new fields and new values behave like a server who doesn't, and that's why it's different. Okay.
Yeah, I think that definitely the API is pretty tricky, especially when you have to deal with API server version skew and stuff like that. So, all right. And that's it for this, right? That's the only change left?
Yes.
Cool. All right, thank you very much. Next we have volume populators.
Yeah. Oh, I should have put links in here. I was going to say I have a bunch of PRs and issues.
Okay.
So the
Yeah,
the
you
code
can
for this.
actually turn this. You can turn this into a project, and then that will let you add a bunch of PRs to it.
Okay, yeah, I didn't have a bunch until just recently. So the code for this is surprisingly small. The main code change for volume populators that's in tree is just changing the feature gate from alpha to beta, which is like a 2-liner or something. One of the things that came out in our API reviews with Tim last week was he wanted to split out the sort of handling of the data source field and its strange historical implementation, and fix that under a separate KEP. And so I have the change that does that available, and it's all code deletion. I just deleted a bunch of lines. Basically, what the proposal had been was to no longer drop invalid data source fields, but just leave them there and then let the admission controller either reject them or accept them as it will. He didn't believe that it was a good idea to drop the unsupported fields, and I think that that implementation got added because it had something to do with the alpha feature gates on volume cloning and snapshot cloning. And I've never really understood exactly why it was the right way to do things, but we agreed that this is probably the right way to do things going forward. The complicated part is he wanted me to write a whole new KEP. So I took my original KEP and split it in two, and I have a PR for that that's not yet merged because I need an exception request, and it's probably too late to ask for an exception request. I don't even know how we could process an exception request and get this merged by tomorrow. But the code is very small. It's just the PR and all of the paperwork for tracking these changes that is slowing me down. But if I can get eyes on the actual PRs that implement the changes, they're extremely simple, and I can link them here. And I can work with the enhancements guys to see if I can still get an exception for my PR split. The only other thing is all of the out of tree changes are not quite ready. I have PRs sitting there waiting, but I need to rev them, and I don't have time to do that by tomorrow. So I'm wondering how big of a problem that is. That the out of tree portions of this definitely won't be merged by tomorrow. The in-tree portions could be if I can get rapid turnaround from Tim and Saad.
I guess the main thing is how confident are we that the changes you have for the out of tree components sort of matches the agreed upon design?
I don't feel like there's any doubt on that count. Tim seemed to accept that, the design choices we made were reasonable, and the big open one was about the backwards compatibility breaking change to the data source field, where we would no longer drop invalid data sources and we would simply reject them if they turned out to be invalid. So that was the only controversial part, which is why he wanted it to have its own KEP. But it's just there's not a lot of time to merge that and review that and merge that change. It is technically independent of the volume populators, but I wanted to do them both together. So
I mean,
yeah.
I think if the have the out of tree changes gotten reviews yet?
I haven't looked. I wrote those like back before Christmas, and I haven't touched them since.
Okay.
Because
I think
we were discussing the basic design and trying to figure out, does everyone agree to this? And finally we got the answer,
I think,
yes.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable if the out of tree changes have already gone through reviews and the approvers generally agree on it. So then it doesn't seem as risky that like will slip the feature. Like the main thing we want to avoid is like moving the feature to beta and then like we don't have an implementation for
Right.
it for like a a couple
So
quarters or something.
what Tim had said was that it's if we get the approvals and get the code merged by the feature freeze, it's not a problem to back those out if we screw something else up later on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's if we can get the basic approvals in and then give people some time to object and say, hey, wait, I don't like this backwards compatibility breaking change, or you know, the issue you're raising, which is what if we don't merge the out of tree stuff because there are issues there. We have until the end of the release to reverse the stuff that goes in, which is it's like a two-liner, right? It just changes the alpha to beta and defaults it's on. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be the remedy, I guess, if we can't get the other stuff merged, is that we could back them out.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. We'll just have to be we'll have to be clear on the dates that we're working with,
Yeah.
and make sure we're on top of that.
Yeah, and I have to. I mean, the hard part I think is going to be to convince the enhancements guys to give me a freeze exception on this KEP splitting, and then I don't know what the timeline is for getting that other KEP reviewed, because that's Tim and the API guys, and I'm going to have to get on their calendar somehow, and I don't even know when they meet, but
Mhm.
the basic populator stuff is real simple. It's that other change that is still complicated.
Mhm.
So
Okay, I mean, I would say once the KEP is ready, like yeah, let's go ahead and try to schedule a time with Tim and folks to go over this. I think that's the best we can do.
okay. All right, and I think that the exception process involves me sending an email to SIG storage and copying the release guys with a bunch of information in it, and I just haven't sent that email yet because I wanted to get all of the code in good shape, and it is now. So
Okay.
yeah, I will send that email and see what they say. Maybe they'll say,
Cool.
too late, and throw me out.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Next up is FS Group. I think Hamad, we weren't able to get this into the CSI spec.
He mentioned in the
is
chat that he has to
tomorrow.
drop.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we missed the CSI spec for this, so I think this will have to wait until next release, unfortunately. I guess, was there an update on expansion? I think. Okay, he says there's one PR. Okay, Jan, are you taking a look at that PR?
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure I like the direction where it's going, like stuffing some random stuff into annotations. But I need to talk to Lemon.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next up we have volume health.
Oh, so just that one PR, can you take a look? I think he having some trouble. I think there are 2 tests keep failing, but those are not really related. So right now, I think there's some other people
Okay.
also checking changes. Yeah, now, so basically there are a lot more lines got changed because of the function name change. Yeah, so I think initially it was pretty small, so now it's getting bigger. Yeah, so yeah, take a look and
okay.
And we only have today and tomorrow, right? So it's actually very tight.
Yep, it sounds good. I'll help take a look. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we also need someone from the Kubernetes SIG node side to take a look. So I see that so Dave Ashpo, who came last time, can he still take a look? But I think he's no longer a approver there, but he is like approval before, I think. He can probably still take a look, and then looks like we still need to ping somebody else from the Signal side.
Yeah, we might have to ping in the SIG node Slack for someone to take a look.
Okay, so can Dave still take a look, or he's all set? He was like, he do this way is okay, he did the other way is fine.
Yeah,
Or
it doesn't
okay?
sound like he has a particular opinion on this.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, but if you can take a
Yeah.
look first, and then if you're good with it, then I'll try to find someone from Signal side, because it
Okay.
looks like we don't need Dave to take a look again, right? It's probably all right with it.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take a look today.
Okay, thank you.
All right, cool. All right, going down to our agenda. Jan, you have a PR open.
Yeah, so, well, this PR doesn't change the behavior of Kubernetes at all. It just refactors the code. But what I noticed is that some Kubernetes vendors like me have a hard time to ensure the order how migration flags are enabled. So you need to enable it in the control manager first, and then in kubelets. And when you want to disable, you need to change the kubelets first, wait for all of them to be drained, change the feature flag, uncordon them, wait until the annotation appears in CSI node and then uncordon them. And this is hard to do it like in programmatically. So we were thinking here in Red Hat how to do that, and we failed couple of times. And the only reason we need the special ordering is that control manager must check nodes. So what I was thinking in OpenShift or in a Kubernetes vendor, change feature flags of the attach detach controller only. So have the provisioner, PV controller, resizer, I don't know what else, to respect the system feature flags, but force enable the migration in in the attach detach controller. And then it doesn't matter in which order you upgrade, in which order you downgrade, how you apply the feature flags, in which components, because attach detach controller will be able to detach and attach everything.
This is because attach controller checks to see if migration was enabled on the node before it does attach.
Yes.
And so the thought is that you would basically turn on migration only for attach controller, like a couple releases before you actually turn on migration on everything else.
Yes, basically. And
Okay.
it also helps with the feature flags enablement, like in beta.
And the main reason why this works is because attach controller actually checks stuff before it actually goes through migration.
Yeah.
Seems plausible. I'm just worried that we might be missing something else, but
well, yeah, I'm worried too. I checked the code, and there is not much when the migration is disabled on nodes. Like the attach control will check the nodes, and if they are disabled, it just goes the entry way. And again, this PR doesn't change anything. It just makes the change easier to implement.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable. Yeah, we just need to be careful there aren't any other funny side effects if, say, it's enabled on attach controller, but not the others. But I guess
I'm willing to be a guinea pig.
I guess you can test it first.
Yeah. And okay, if I prove it works, would it be good change to have in Kubernetes. Maybe not in 121 because like feature freeze, code freezes tomorrow, but in 122 maybe, because it would allow you to change the feature gates in any order you want, and I think everybody would be happy. I don't know how do you do it in GKE, but it's very complicated.
We actually do order everything.
Yeah, okay, maybe you are smarter than us, but I tried and it's hard.
All right. Okay, but I think as you know, as far as refactoring this, I think this seems okay, since it's not changing how Kubernetes is operating today.
Yeah, it should not change. And if it does, then please let me know. I fix it.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Any other topics? All right, then we'll end for today. Sorry.
I was still looking for my mute button or my window. Okay, I started looking a little bit at the work that I need to do in storage for storage capacity tracking and external provisioner, starting with metrics. And what I found is basically that currently the only metrics data exposed by external provisioner is the sidecar one, the one that we explicitly collect ourselves with the metrics manager. There's no information about any of the work queues in the sidecar, which I would assume is also relevant information. And in particular for storage capacity, one of the work queues is exactly what I'm trying to expose. I'm now wondering whether I should basically enable all work queues, all named work queues, like in other Kubernetes components while I'm at it.
Yeah,
Would
I
that
think
make
that
sense?
sounds great. Yeah,
Okay.
more metrics the better.
I also wonder how to do it, because I think at least in other places, I just used the default Prometheus gatherer or registry. I keep getting confused between the two. I basically just use whatever has been registered globally. I've done that. I've made the change for external provisioner. It's currently tentative. And what I do get then is the Go language statistics, for example. Is that also welcome information about the sidecar? Numbers of Go threads, heap size, things like that.
That's probably useful.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too. We've enabled it in our PMM CSI. It just gets into a territory where, yeah, you're exposing more, perhaps a bit more about your process than you were expecting. And it currently is done through an HTTP port. So there's no security around that information. I think it's fine, but I could imagine that other people are more paranoid. So I wanted to.
Yeah, I think if you in the PR, if you just sort of document all of the metrics that start to get exposed, we can take a look and see if there's anything there that we don't really want to expose.
Yeah, it's also worth pointing out that the alpha beta tagging of metrics data doesn't work for these kind of metrics data, because it's basically generated by code that is not wrapped by Kubernetes. So you end up with some metrics data that doesn't have this alpha gate or alpha tag in it, and then the sidecar information that we collect ourselves has it, which is a bit inconsistent.
So I guess we've been using there's a Kubernetes metrics thing. I think it's called like Kubernetes component base.
Yeah.
And then that should have a common set of metrics that get enabled on all Kubernetes components. I think that seems to be like, if we want to have consistent set of metrics across all Kubernetes components, that library seems like the way we should go.
I probably need to look at how they register and what's the difference compared to what I'm doing. I'm currently using Prometheus directly in some cases, or
I see.
in the main function. Yeah.
I would take a look at this Kubernetes component base
Yeah.
that has a metrics, their own metrics wrapper.
I know that they are wrapping. I just don't know how to set it up so that it actually collects those, but I'll figure that out. The other question that I had is around testing this, because we currently don't seem to have a good way to test our main function, but that's basically where we set up the metrics gathering and so on. All we can do is an E2E test, but those are not defined in external provisioners. So we basically can't, at this time, I think, define an E2E test that actually tests the upcoming external provisioner unless we get some tests somewhere else implemented first, which is icky.
Yeah, I think this is the same. I think this is the same issue that Xing was bringing up. Like right now, we don't. Like I think the best place to do E2E test for metrics is going to be in the sidecar repos directly as another sidecar specific job.
Yeah, probably, but then we still need a way to define an E2E test and implement it. We can implement an E2E test suite like the one from Kubernetes in our sidecars. It's just not there at the moment.
Yeah, sounds like maybe like
and we've had a couple. Sorry.
I was just saying, like, if we need that, it sounds like it should be like CSI test repo should have the E2E test suite, and other sidecar can use those, or should be like one common place. I'm not sure. Or maybe it should be one common.
But if you put it into an external repo, you basically can't add a feature and merge it together with a test.
That's true. Yeah.
That's the key conceptual problem with putting your tests elsewhere. You basically have to trust that your change that you're making is okay. If it's not, you merge the feature, you write the test later, and then you find out that you made a mistake. Or because, if a test is not continuously running, you probably would set it up eventually so that your external test is running against pull requests. But yeah, it's not easy to manage.
So is the concept, metrics? I mean, Michelle, looks like this is only regarding metrics related tests, but not other tests.
So like, if you look at other CSI driver repos, like the NFS one, or the Samba one, like they have already written their own E2E test framework because they can't use the kind infrastructure that we have. And I would suspect if we need to have sidecar specific E2E tests or integration tests, then that's probably the way that we'll need to go, unless like we think there will be some common tests or common framework we can share. But otherwise, like I think, an E2E test that specifically tests provisioner metrics, I don't think is going to be adaptable to other sidecars.
I mean, yeah, it's probably not that. Normally, people don't just download that test suite and run without any changes. I suspect that will not work. Like we actually use a lot of the E2E test framework, but we make changes to it, for our driver. I don't know who is actually completely relying on the in-tree E2E test without any changes. I mean, we
do.
Oh, you do? Okay. Then maybe
like
I was thinking
the
just
main
for the
important.
Well, I think it's just for the in-tree driver, in-tree one, right? So for GCPD, we have tests, host pass, and then if there was other things we want to test in the future in-tree, then that's fine. But we can't possibly like figure out how this could possibly work for every other driver that is not currently in-tree. I mean, that has been tested already. So are you saying this test, like the metric test won't work for this GC cluster? I thought we have a
so
way to set up that, right?
So I mean, we can follow up offline, but at least the way that the metrics test is written right now, it's not going to work on all clusters. And we're putting it in this test framework that is supposed to work, not have like cluster dependencies.
But does it work for GCPD cluster, your cluster right now? This metric
It
test?
will work for the cube up cluster because we basically made changes to how snapshot controllers deployed in cube up. So it will work on cube up clusters, but it's not going to work on other clusters that are not cube up.
I was just wondering if it passed all the entry tests, then
Yeah. It
it's
passed
fine.
for the entry
How's it-
test. It passed
What
for the
else do we
entry
need
test
to-
because no. Sorry. It passed for the entry test because we made changes in cube up, and then we made changes in the test to make it work for cube up. So the test is very dependent on how snapshot controllers deployed in cube up, which is not going to apply. It's not going to apply to like a kind cluster. It's not going to apply to a cube ADM cluster. I think that's the main problem that I can see with the current test. It's very dependent on how. It's very dependent on which cluster you're running it on, which I think is not the goal of our test suites tests.
Okay, yeah, I think we probably should talk about this offline.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any other topics? All right, thank you very much. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.